Commodore fans, are you ready? It's time for another episode of the Vandy 24/7 podcast on the 440 Sports Network. Keep it locked right here for the best Vanderbilt coverage. Whether it's Clark Lee on the gridiron, Mark Byington and Shea Ralph on the hardwood, or Tim Corbin on the diamond, the Vandy 24/7 crew has you covered. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Also, like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's free and easy to do. Follow the crew on Twitter, Apple Podcast, and Spotify for podcast episodes. Lastly, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email Chris Lee at chrislee70@gmail.com. And now, pull up a chair. It's time for another episode of the Vandy 24/7 podcast.
Welcome back into another episode of the Vandy 24/7 podcast on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Billy Derrick, alongside today a special guest, Joe Bulovas, former Vanderbilt kicker for a couple of seasons there under Clark Lee, also with Raymond James currently, and he's presenting our football covers this season. So we're gonna have some fun today with Joe Bulovas and really introducing what he'll be doing with us this season. And we'll talk Vanderbilt football. We'll talk a little bit about what went down at SEC Media Days last week as well. We'll get into some fall camp storylines and players to watch. And, nobody really better to do it than Joe Bulovas, who was a part of the build there early with Clark Lee. And we're going to get into some of Clark's comments, in particular, really the last 4 to 5 minutes of his time there at the main podium down in Atlanta. But, Joe, let's kick this thing off, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. I appreciate you guys having me. I know you guys have a really busy schedule, so it means a lot to be able to squeeze me in.
No, that's on our end as well. We know you're busy, and we really appreciate you being a part of this with us. I do want to tell everybody about what you do. I'm going to do my part, and then I'll let you do your part on your business, Joe. But if there's one thing we all share, it's that our lives are all unique and busy. Both of us, especially getting ready for football season at Raymond James, they believe that's worth celebrating because financial planning isn't just about numbers and figures. It's about creating the life you envision. So whether you're building a future or preparing for retirement, a Raymond James financial advisor can guide you each step of the way, all while following a plan that's uniquely yours. That's life well planned. To learn more, call our man, Joe Bulovas. Call him, financial advisor with Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James. His number 615-645-6742. Again, 615-645-6742. Raymond James Associates, Incorporated, member New York Stock Exchange, SIPC. Joe, that was my part. I'm sure you can do it a little bit better, but just tell people.
That was pretty thorough, my man. I don't know if I can top that one.
I want to give you an opportunity, though, to let people know what you've been up to, and obviously Vanderbilt people that may not know.
Yeah, so after I got done playing, I wanted to do something where I found a lot of fulfillment getting to work hard for other people. When you play the game of football, you are really working hard for the people around you out of respect for them and respect for the program as a whole to try and do something bigger than yourself and accomplish goals mutually. And so that's why I got into what I'm doing now is I enjoy working with great people and great families and to work together on a team to accomplish a goal. It's very similar to football. Obviously, the day-to-day looks very, very different. I'm not, out there running 110s and pushing sleds and then putting pads on, but I try and look at it in that respect of I'm doing that in a way for other people and families to provide the most valuable possible. I really enjoy what I get to do. It's fulfilling. I get to go to bed at night knowing that I put somebody in a better position than they were before. And so if I can help anybody out there, I'm happy to sit down and point you in the right direction. It's funny because I don't know if there's any George Strait fans out there, but there's an old song by him called "You'll Be There," and there's a line in there that says, "You can't bring nothing here with you, and you can't take nothing back. I've never seen a hearse with a luggage rack." It might sound a little cheesy, but it's so true. So the reason I do what I do is to give back and to give people the opportunity to be successful now, a few years down the road, and for the rest of their lives.
Well, the key phrase there is give back, and when we've met and previously, you've given a lot of thanks for Vanderbilt and the city of Nashville, and especially this program, and that's what this is about. This is about Vanderbilt football, and this is about what Clark Lee and Barton Simmons and everybody a part of that program has been building. But obviously, it's about people like you as well, all the alumni that may not be in Nashville, care about the program still, especially after a season like last year. But especially for you're almost a unique case, Joe, where you are in Nashville, and because of your Vanderbilt experience, you wanted to stay in Nashville. So I want to go here. What's that been like? Staying close with the program. Obviously, you started your career at Alabama and ended up transferring to Vanderbilt. Kind of one of the, I think maybe the first transfer of the Clark Lee era. So what has it been like to stay connected? Because it's something you want to do, right? I mean, there's probably former players of other schools who turn into fans of other teams, but you yourself have stayed in Nashville and stayed connected to the program. So I guess why? What made Vanderbilt football appealing for you to want to stay connected to?
Sure. So it's a very long answer, but it can be summed up pretty quickly. It's all about the people. Black and white, clear as day. It's all about the people. When I got up here to Nashville and I started getting accustomed to the team, the coaches, the staff, you had people that you would want to run through a brick wall for. And so Coach Lee and his staff are no different. I actually gave a presentation to the football team last week, and I told them the exact same things. Like, guys, I'm here for y'all. I'm here to point you in the right direction in any way, shape, or form. This is about you guys. And I know everybody in this room can tell and has found out that Vanderbilt is special and is experiencing success right now because of the people. Shared vision, great people in the room, doing things the right way, making the right choices and decisions to create more value for themselves and the team as a whole. And I think that's what you had last season. So, long answer summed up is the people. I chose to come back here because my experience at Vanderbilt was second to none. It was really something that I hold very special to my heart. So Vandy holds a very, very special place for me. And I wanted to give back to a place that had been so great to me. And I gave my all for while I was here with Coach Lee and his staff and the guys that I played with. So I thought no better way and place to be is to come back to Nashville, start my practice, and work hard for the people and others that I get to meet along the way that have been so great to me.
I think what our listeners and viewers, of course, now, because everything's visual, everybody's got a YouTube channel now. So don't forget to like and subscribe. That's where Joe is gonna be seen really for the most part. But I think interesting for our viewers and listeners is really the first 2 years under Clark Lee. You were a part of two teams that, look, you won 7 games total, but that was the beginning of the vision, right? And I'm interested to go back to that because that season you had the game-winning field goal against UConn, had some huge kicks really all throughout that season, Joe, that I think a lot of Vanderbilt people, may forget about, but those were huge. I mean, those were building points for that program. And then you get into 2022 and you were a part of a team that you've told me before had a lot of talent. Look at a Mike Wright and a Ray Davis and some guys that you built, close bonds with that you still interact with today. I know we're going to get into this season and media days and what have you, but I think people are really interested to hear your perspective on those first 2 seasons of the build under Clark with Barton Simmons before Diego Pavia came and Jerry Kill and Tim Beck and, before a little bit of the explosion. There was a mini explosion there in 22.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It was a mini explosion. A lot of delayed gratification that season and a little too little of it on, the grand scheme of things when we looked at the whole season. But the first 2 years with Coach Lee, man, it's really hard to sum up because you had everybody that came back for year 2 was all in. And you had a bunch of guys, guys, 18 and 23-year-old kids, and the whole staff and coaching staff all aligned for one single mission, and that's to, one, obviously win every game, but to be as successful as we can be individually. So the first 2 years were obviously a lot of growing pains. I know Coach Lee in his media day conference, he spoke actually on the ETSU game. That was my first game at Vandy. We didn't score a lot of points. Certainly didn't score a lot of points enough to win. So very humble beginnings for Coach Lee and his new team here at Vandy. But and I don't believe we always had the right guys in the locker room that first year. I know plenty of people would probably say the same thing about that. We had a lot of guys 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and I saw it. And at the end of the day, you hope that their minds change to do the right things, to be all in for the team because of respect for the guys around them. But you saw almost, I would say 100% buy-in year 2. You had the right guys. You had a lot of leadership. It was a much older team, and like I said before, it was a very talented team. The guys that ended up playing on that year 2 team, if they transferred or went out to the NFL, they're mostly still playing. So they've done a really nice job for themselves. So we had a lot of talent. It was just a matter of having the right pieces of the puzzle there. Because you can have all the talent in the world, because I would argue we had probably the most talented team to maybe they are now, that year 1 and year 2 span. But at the same time, if you don't have 100% buy-in, you're undercutting the foundation. And that's, Coach Lee preached that all the time, is we can't undercut the foundation of the program. We can't have one guy straddle on the line, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We have to have 100% buy-in, spears forward, ready to ruthlessly charge the opponent, end quote from Coach Lee. So, yeah, it was an interesting time, but man, I wouldn't have done a thing differently. I enjoyed every second I got to play for Coach Lee and be a Vanderbilt Commodore.
Well, you mentioned some Coach Lee quotes there. It's so interesting talking about every quote he has. There's not a quote that's taken lightly. Right. And if you were to, sit and listen to Clark Lee for 30 minutes or an hour, whatever it ended up being, I think it was like 50 minutes actually at the podium at SEC Media Days. You're going to learn something.
He has a way of extending the conference, man. He can be a little long-winded sometimes, especially after practice on a knee. You didn't know if it was going to be 5 minutes or 35. It could be, you just got yourself comfortable and looked them in the eye the whole time. So, and try to hang on every word. But every word's important with him, just like you said.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the quotes that I liked was, in quote, Vanderbilt football is a chip on the shoulder operation. It's young. It's home to a young, hungry, scrappy team that begins each day with something to prove. We want to make life miserable for the teams we play against because of how we play the game, the energy we bring every time we step on the field. This is what makes us special, not our buildings or banners. It's our people, our collective heartbeat. Relatedness is our edge. And you got into that, Joe, right at the top. You talked about the people are the reason why you're still connected, and you're talking about them, and you're going to the games. You're going to the spring game. You're tailgating before games. It's about the people. That quote stood out to me because, look, Vanderbilt's made 10 bowl games in the history of the program. They're not a traditionally winning program, but when they've had success, whether it's under James Franklin or even Bobby Johnson and year 2 under Clark Lee, right? You guys had a couple of big SEC wins there against Florida and Kentucky. That's not about one player. That's not about 2 players. That's about the collective unit. I mean, that Kentucky win there in Lexington, that was special, and there's a reason Clark Lee was crying after that game. It's because of what this program means to him. So, Joe, that quote there meant something to me, and I know you've got a couple that stood out to you. But man, that about the people that really stood out to me on Monday.
Yeah, man, there's nobody I'd rather run through a brick wall for than him. You can patch me up, throw some Band-Aids on there, maybe a sling or something, but I'd do it all over again. And Coach Lee I know everybody that I play with can relate to this too, is Coach Lee has a very unique way of just being himself, no matter what the circumstance. He's had to jump through a lot of hoops and jump over a lot of hurdles just given the landscape of college football in the past few years, he's been a head coach. You know, you're talking about revenue share. You've got NIL. You've got all this noise outside of college football, but he's always stayed himself. He's always stayed true to the team and putting his players first. And the team recognized that. When I got here, you know, he was wanting guys to come into his office just to get to know them better. You know, and as busy as a schedule as he has, he never lost sight of putting his players first. And as a guy in that locker room, heck, I mean, that's a way to rally the troops without even doing anything. Just being who you are and being the same guy through and through. And so I've always really respected that about him. You know, win, loss, you name it, he's been himself. The fact that he's a great husband, he's a great father. When you've got a leader like that, and every word that he says, you're hanging on to, knowing he means it from the bottom of his heart. I mean, you're gonna have 110% buy-in. So it's been really cool to see the evolution of him as a coach and the team, because it's a combined effort. But when you've got a guy like that, where everybody knows he's meaning what he's saying, I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of great stuff down the road for this team.
Well, and a part of Clark Lea's growth was realizing offensively this program had to change. They had to evolve from what they were doing. Nothing against Joey Lynch and A.J. Swan and some of the guys that were part of that offense, but in order to separate yourself from the bottom of the pack in the SEC, you had to be different, right? And I got a chance to talk to a lot of people about that last week in Atlanta, Joe. That's what they had to do. You know, at Vanderbilt, you've got to be a little bit different, right? Especially on offense. You've got to reinvigorate yourself, and that's exactly what they did. You bring in Diego Pavia, and man, we heard some quotes from Pavia last week, like we're used to, right? This was a chance for the national media to get to know Pavia a little bit and ask him some questions. But for us in the local media, and I know you've met him, Joe, this is what we're used to, right? With Diego Pavia. I think a couple things that were interesting. He did say that last year got banged up in the Kentucky game. We knew that, but I think him reinstating that and basically admitting that one of their big defensive linemen just fell on him. And since the Kentucky game, he was not himself. So getting back in the training room this season for Pavia will be crucial. But also, look, you can't be about his goals and this program's goals if you don't talk about them. If you don't work to try to speak them into existence. And look, he gets flack. He got flack with the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. He gets flack nationally, but he doesn't care, right? And if you're Vanderbilt, this was the perfect time to bring in a quarterback and a player like Diego Pavia. He said, "I came back to win a national championship." He said he wants his goals to win the Heisman Trophy. And my thing in that, Joe, is that you cannot accomplish those things without talking about them, and that's the first step, right? So he believes it. He has instilled belief into the program, and look, you can't talk about last season and any win last season without talking about Diego Pavia. So these quotes are not a surprise to us. I think the national media was introduced to what Pavia is all about, especially in a media setting. It was cool, and there's a reason they went on Monday. I think the SEC strategically sets it up with the order. You got Pavia on Monday with Texas and some of the other big headliners. I don't think that was a coincidence.
Yeah, no, he's done a phenomenal job of being himself throughout all the attention he's given him. So when he came in, I got to know him really well, pretty much right off the bat before he was even eligible to practice in the spring, and I could tell he was a special guy. He's not afraid to be uniquely himself. He's unapologetically himself, and with a guy that has had so much attention drawn to him because of his success and the team's success, I really respect the way he's handled everything. Coach Lee, a lot of the time, would say, we have everything we need to do to accomplish the goals we have right here in this room. We have everything that we need, but we need 100% buy-in. And I think it all goes back to the team. And then when you get a team of that kind of caliber to buy in, then you see a season like last year kind of out of nowhere. You know, you got the right piece of the puzzle, and then you're getting the attention again, right? Maybe the most attention, maybe in program history. But that's all. It's all. They deserve every aspect of that because they've worked hard to get it, and I know this team's ready to go back for more of this season. So it's exciting to see.
All right, enough about talking season and what happened last year. Let's shift it to this season. Fall camp, we're about a week away, which is crazy. From fall camp getting underway, a little over a week away. Obviously, Coach Lee, they had to make changes heading into last offseason. This offseason, Joe's a little bit different. You've got a lot of continuity. You've got Pavia back. You've got Stowers back. You've got a lot of weapons on offense back that produced last year. Whether it was Cedric Alexander, you bring in McKylan Young from New Mexico State. You have AJ Newberry back, who I thought was unheralded a lot of times last season. You bring in Trent Hudson from New Mexico State, a guy that played with Diego Pavia a couple of years ago there in Albuquerque. What's interesting about this season is what new wrinkles do you have offensively? And because of that, I'm interested to see how the offensive line gels in fall camp, Joe. I'm not worried about the defense as much as I am. How does the offense continue to, I say reinvent? I don't know if that's the word, but look, Vanderbilt's not going to sneak up on anybody this year. I think they're still going to be able to keep the chip on their shoulder because, look, they were picked to finish 13th by the SEC media. That was the poll that was announced on Friday. They're still, you got Stowers, who's a first-team tight end in the SEC. He's heralded, obviously, nationally. But outside of that, that's really a lot of the only respect Vanderbilt's getting is Stowers. And when you're picked to finish 13th, that's a lot of motivation for this team. But for me, Joe, in fall camp, it's the offensive line. It's how do the receivers continue to improve and create those openings for Pavia to throw to, but also defensively the cornerback position. I'm really interested to see the guys that they have step into those roles because that let's face it, that was a weakness last year of the team, the cornerbacks, especially against some high passing teams like LSU and Tennessee and teams like that. But offensive line for me, Joe, because look, the most important thing is keeping Pavia upright. That's what I'll be watching in fall camp, and man, I'm just hearing the words fall camp. It gets me going because last year was really my first big season to be around fall camp. I know you've been going the last several years. You know what fall camp's like. I know it can be a grind, especially after the first week and a half or two. But this one's going to be interesting. Not as much change in the offseason as last offseason, but still some things to look out for.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Not as much change going into this upcoming season. What I do see is, I love it with you on the O-line. I want to see great play there. I think they're going to have it. Coach Lee's done a phenomenal job, and Barton have done phenomenal jobs here of getting the right pieces of the puzzle in and recruiting the right guys. You can have really talented guys at positions, but they're recruiting the guys with the right mindset. Just like you alluded to a little bit ago, that chip on the shoulder program, they're recruiting those types of guys that have something to prove. They're coming here, 10 toes down, hair on fire, ready to get after it in any way, shape, or form to help the team win. So obviously we're going to be looking at, everybody's going to have their eyes on Diego and Eli, as they rightfully should. They're the big-time talent guys. They can make something happen in a moment's notice, and they're going to bring excitement to the field every single time they step onto it, and they're great guys individually. You got Junior Sherrill. I like Cedric Alexander. You got your guys that you're going to be looking for. What I'm really looking for this year, and I know you touched on it a little bit, is to have that defense take the next step. I would argue that it was a phenomenal performance on the whole year as an aggregate kind of effort on the defensive side. Now, we've got a lot of new faces in the secondary. You've got your core guys on the defensive line and Miles Capers and Issa and a couple new faces. The linebacking core is really, really solid. So I'm excited to see all this, I guess, seniority as well as these new faces gel together to take even a better step forward than they did last year, because I was really impressed last year. Comparatively speaking to the years prior, I think Coach Lee hit an absolute home run in coaching the defense last year. I was really happy for him, for his guys to see success, and the guys that I played with in particular. I played with a good number of those guys on defense still. Heck, I was a little bit over McGuy when they came in, but still know them pretty well. I'm looking at Marlowe, C.J. Hurd, Jordan Matthews, Rando, and a couple other guys in that secondary, and obviously Langston Patterson in the linebacker room. There's a lot of talent on this team on the defensive side. So I'm excited for them to pull it all together and take that defense to the next step.
Yeah, you mentioned the defensive line. I think and I do want to hit on the offensive line a little bit as well. And we'll have a ton of time throughout this preseason to really dive deeper into this team here with Joe. But a lot of the defensive line rotation is intact, like you mentioned. You got Glenn Seabrooks, who is a guy that that you go back to that Virginia Tech game of his life with the pick interception there, which really got them
big
going.
Man running with the rock, man.
Yeah. So in a local kid who has gotten bigger, and he was big last year, man, as a young player. Issa Wataha, you mentioned, Miles Capers, Corday Sidner is also back. So the defensive line is going to be important because look, late in the season, Joe, whether it was LSU, whether it was Tennessee, you saw some teams be able to run the ball a little bit more efficiently against Vanderbilt, and that starts with having depth on the defensive line. They also added Keanu Coate from Alabama. I think he'll be excited to go down to Tuscaloosa and try to beat the Tide again. Mason Nelson, a guy from Western Michigan, I think is one to watch as well to continue to add depth to that room. Jalen Stone from Southeast Missouri. Those two guys aren't going to be talked about a bunch, Joe, but I think that type of depth is what's going to be big for this team this season. If you do have a Seabrooks go down or Wataha get banged up a couple of weeks, you've got a guy like Nelson or Stone to come in there and fill some of those gaps. And, man, this linebacker room, Luke Wyatt on some previous podcasts has talked about that room as one of the best linebacker rooms they've had ever at Vanderbilt. Brian Longwell, Langston Patterson, you've got Bryce Cowan, you've got Randon Fontenette. And then you talk about the safeties too, C.J. Hurd, guy who's really talented at FAU last season. You do lose Ricky Wright and C.J. Taylor. But this defense, Joe, I know you're not necessarily a defensive guy, but man, Clark Lee is, right? And
right.
Man, but he's taken away the defensive coordinator reins. Look, his fingerprints will still be on it. It's still Clark's defense, but I think you make a really good point about that defense, and that's the calling card, right? Without the defense last year, they don't win 7 games. Right, you go back to that Alabama game, some huge plays. They got to continue, and it's not about luck. Defensively, you can put yourself in that position, but that defense has got to continue to improve and play even better than they did last year at times, Joe.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I mean, the way that this team is structured is you've got an offense that, by nobody's surprise, is meant to hold the ball for as long as possible and take time off the clock and score every possession, and the defense keep them out of the red zone for as long as possible. And you saw, I can't even put into words how well managed the Alabama game was from a Vanderbilt standpoint. It just showed how good this team can operate when they do things the right way and everybody's clicking on all cylinders. So the defense is so important. I can't even describe how important it is to the strategy of winning. And as a specialist, you kind of get a bird's eye view of the only time heck I go on the field is if we score. Well, the punter, he's going on every time we don't score. So it's like you get a bird's eye view of how the game operates. But being on the sidelines, this past couple seasons, and especially this past season, seeing the defense really just shut down the opportunities for the opposing team, it's been really cool to watch. But they got to play complementary football. That's when your special teams really comes into play, when you're playing a field position battle and time management. All 3 phases of the game need to be clicking on all cylinders. And you saw how small the margins were last year. so many games were determined between a one possession game, essentially, 3 points, 5, 7, whatever it came down to, but just so close. So I'm looking for the team as a whole to take that next step, to minimize the errors, right? Don't shoot yourself in the foot. I think they did a really good job of not doing that last year compared to years past. But I'm really excited to see guys take accountability and take it to the next level. And that comes from a complete team, with depth and talent.
Well, we're about out of time, but I want to save a lot of the special teams talk. I think we may have a special teams kicking themed episode with a lot of Brock Taylor talk in there, Joe. And man, he was big last season as well. And the new punter from Washington State, Nick Haberer, as well. And
Right.
I've told people that Vanderbilt is, just a special teams factory. I mean, you could say year in, year out, even year one of Clark Lee, that the team you were a part of, special teams unit, was solid. And has gotten even better, and that's been huge. And so we'll continue to talk about that. We'll continue to talk about this team, and we're going to analyze the schedule. We are going to talk more about the offense and what we can expect there. But Joe, we're almost there, man. It's wild that media days hits, and then everybody starts getting that itch. Everybody wants to start talking about football now. And like I said, fall camp a little over a week away. One more thing I want to mention to get people excited. We've talked about a lot that gets people excited here. We are going to do, I'm not going to release all the details. So we'll sneak preview of what Joe and I have planned this season. Something we've talked about leading up to this is, how can we give fans value? How can we provide Vanderbilt fans with something they can look forward to every week? And sometimes it can be tough with a post-game show right after the game, just because, Clark is speaking and people want to hear that. But you wake up Sunday morning, you might feel different about the loss on Saturday or the win on Saturday. We're still thinking of a name, and we might need your guys' help on that. But Joe and I will be doing a Sunday
comment section.
yeah. Fire it in the comment section, and we'll get this posted on the board and fire that up. But we're gonna be doing a Sunday night show. We're still thinking about a time, but we'll talk about that week's game. We'll take a quick look at the game coming up. But look, if Joe's not at the game, he's watching it. He's watching every second. Obviously, so am I. So we're gonna dive into that week's game. So if you guys have any names for that Sunday night show, Joe and I haven't had much luck coming up with one. But Joe, I'm looking forward to this, man. It's gonna be fun.
Likewise, man. Well, I appreciate you guys having me, and hope you all enjoyed the podcast this week.
Absolutely. That's Vanderbilt kicker Joe Bulovas, and you'll see a lot more of him, a lot more where this came from here on the Vandy 24/7 podcast. Joe, appreciate it. I'm gonna wrap this thing up and let people know how else they can continue to find Mr. Joe Bulovas, and also how they continue to find us. Give us a review and a 5-star rating. That helps us get noticed. If you're listening and haven't subscribed to our site yet, Vandy247.com, please do so. It's pretty easy. You get the inside scoop on all things Vanderbilt alongside Robbie Weinstein, myself, and Chris Lee. You can read all of our content across the 24/7 Sports Network. So go subscribe, Vandy247.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. As I mentioned, like this video, fire away your comments and questions. That is free. And finally, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email Chris Lee at chrislee70@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you again soon with more episodes of the Vandy 24/7 podcast.